Hello, it's Cynthia Morris, and just a second ago I was alone in my studio. Now I'm here live with you for a mini workshop that I wanted to offer to get your year started off right about how to design a writing practice that works for you. I will go over some things that I have learned in my 24 years of having my own writing practice and 20 years helping other people have their successful writing practice. Some of these things you may have heard before, and some will be new to you. So I'm glad you're here to watch and hopefully glean at least one little nugget to inspire your writing year and to make it work for you, because that's the whole point of designing your own writing practice. You're going to design something that works for you. Before I get into the details of that, I'll just touch briefly on who I am and what I'm about, just in case you don't know. Welcome everybody who's here live with me. It makes it great to feel like I'm talking to real live actual people on the other side of your computer or phone. So I'm Cynthia Morris, and I have found that having practices is what has helped me feel on track, on target, on point with the things I want to do and make in my life and the way I want to live my life. I've had a writing practice since I started writing in February 1994 when I was just a wee pup. So that's 2024. So that's 25 years of a writing practice. I've also been dedicated to my yoga practice. I started that in February 1996. So I've got 23-year yoga practice. And I also have a coaching practice that I've been working in and on since 1999. So this is my 20-year anniversary of a practice. With those three practices, those are the main ones. I've done other ones. I'll have a meditation practice or other practices, but with those three practices, I've been able to successfully finish projects that matter to me. I've written 8 books, 3 books and 5 ebooks. I've created and shared bodies of work. I've launched programs, and I work as a coach and a teacher for creative people who want to find success on their own terms. So I attribute all of the success that I've had to the ability to have a practice. So what is a practice and why a practice? I'm going to share some thoughts about that. So first, a practice is not a task. It's not something on your to-do list like write or write books. A practice is something that you are devoted to and committed to and sustain over time. So the other thing about a practice is that there's something very humbling about a practice. A practice is not about being good, looking good, being the best, doing your best. A practice is about showing up consistently over time to devote yourself to that thing that you're practicing. I've devoted myself to practicing writing for 25 years. I've devoted myself to practicing yoga for 23 years. I've devoted myself to coaching. Does this mean that I'm a perfect coach or writer or yogi? No, far from it. I do my best, and I do my humble best to keep learning and growing within my practices. And that's another thing that I think distinguishes a practice. It's a place of learning and growth. So it's not just, I'm just disciplining myself and making myself sit down and write the things I want to write. It's devoting yourself to a container, to a process, to a way of working that works for you, that allows you to do things that you want in a joyful way, in a dedicated way, in a committed way. If you're anything like me, you're a bit of a rebel, and you rebel against external structures or external dictates, or anybody that tells you this is the way you should do it. You maybe rebel against that. Or if you're like many of the creatives I know, what you'll do is you'll take that and you'll tweak it. I've come to call this the adopt and adapt approach. So when you hear an idea about something, you adopt it for yourself and adapt it to what works for you. So that's a basic principle that I want to start this little workshop with, is anything that I present as an idea that sparks something in you, play with adopting it and then adapting it to make it work for you. So some of the benefits that come from having a practice is you build confidence in yourself. Every time you show up for your writing, to honor your commitment to write, you are making a deposit in your trust bank, in your self-trust bank. You start to trust yourself that when you say you're going to show up for the writing, you will show up for the writing. This is huge. This is such a big benefit of having a writing practice. It's really the number one thing that people get from actually honoring their creative impulses is confidence. When you have confidence, when you trust yourself, when you know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, you're able to do so much more in that field, in your writing and in your life. The cool thing about gathering confidence as a writer is that that confidence can be extended to other things in your life. Confidence to have difficult conversations, confidence to say no to things that don't work for you, confidence to claim what you want and to take steps to go for it. So all of these benefits of confidence are just enormous when you commit to your writing practice. When you are committed to your writing practice and engaged in it, you have the ability to manage your inner critic much better. The inner critic is omnipresent, isn't it? He, she, they, the inner critic, whatever you call it, seems to be on site all the time, especially when you go to do the things that you really want to do, like write. So when you start being the person who shows up for your writing and doing your writing, the inner critic doesn't have as much room to get in there and navigate. I like to say that the inner critic, or fear, hates a moving target. If you're in action, it just doesn't stick to you as easily. If you're not in action, if you're thinking about writing or wanting to write or hoping to write, or maybe someday you'll write, there's a lot of room for the inner critic to get in there and say, yeah, well, maybe when you do go to write, it's going to be bad and you're going to suck. So the inner critic doesn't have as much traction when you are in your practice, engaged in your writing and dedicated to it. When you have a writing practice that's consistent over time, you have a body of work. I have, as I mentioned, those 8 books, all of the art that I've created, the coaching business that I've built, all of the things that accrue when you are consistent over time. You will have a body of work. That's the obvious one. And then I believe that when you have a practice in one area, it extends to other areas. So if you say, well, I've been able to be consistent with my writing, maybe I'll be able to be consistent with my meditating or with a different kind of eating or some other lifestyle change. So I believe that the power we gain from one practice is transferable to developing other practices. The more you know yourself and what works for you, the easier it will be to build more of a life around what you want. So why not start with the writing practice? Writing practice is such a power tool, whether you're using it to write your books or your articles or your blogs or your course material, or whether you're using a writing practice in addition to creating work that will go out into the world. Having a writing practice as a way to be in touch with your most wise and best consultant, which is your wise self or your higher self. Writing is one of the best ways to have access to that part of you. So it's a power practice. I think I've communicated the why you want to have a writing practice pretty clearly. You can tell I'm excited about this. If you have any questions about anything I'm saying or anything you want to add, feel free to leave a comment there and I'm happy to respond to those. Okay, so what is the question that you hear most often when you go and hear an author speak? You probably have heard this question at every author event you've ever been to. What do you think that question is? I know you know what it is, but I'll say it. The question is, what is your writing process like? Tell us about your writing process. And we want to know how successful creative people work. I think we're looking for the magic bullet, that they're going to somehow have the key or the way to do it, or that they'll know how to do it so that we can then do it ourselves. And I think that there is no magic bullet in what other people tell you is their practice. The magic bullet is in customizing your practice, designing it so that it works for you. And really taking the time to set that up. So here's the kind of the how-to part of this workshop that I'm offering here about designing your practice. You probably already have some writing practice under your belt. You probably already know some things about yourself and your writing. What I would want to invite you to do is take the next 2 weeks to enter into a learning lab about yourself and your writing practice. Set up some parameters for yourself and then use those parameters to either inhabit the things that work in there or push away the things that don't work, tweak and revise the things that need just a little bit of shifting. So take 2 weeks, take a look at your calendar, look at what your workload, what your life load looks like, and look at where on the calendar you can fit in a couple of writing sessions. In the next 2 weeks, maybe let's say shoot for something like 5 or 6 writing sessions. Again, I'm throwing ideas out there, adopt them and adapt them. For you, you might think, oh, I want to do 10 sessions, or 2 weeks is 14 days, I want to do 14. I want to kindly and gently point to the part of us that is ambitious and is the big dreamer and the visionary, and we love that part. We love that part that sees ourselves as able to do everything and anything. What I want to do is bring in the humble part of you that knows that starting small and building over time is going to be more successful than starting with a big vision and shooting out like a rocket and then falling to the earth and then saying, see, that didn't work. I'm not going to try anything. So start small. Choose just a good handful of writing sessions between now and 14 days from now. And then again, rein in the idea that it has to be big. Start with small bursts of time, short writing sessions. I would plan for 30 minutes, and I would start each writing session with a 15-minute free write, and I'll talk about free writing a little bit more in a minute. If you think, oh, I need an hour or I need 2 hours, you're never going to schedule that time. We generally don't operate in chunks of time like that so much. Our attention spans, in case you haven't noticed, are shrinking. So a 30-minute span of time is perfect for a brief little writing session to get you started. I love seeing people from all over the world. This is great. Welcome, everybody. Hello. Is that the French flag? I kind of need my glasses to see that. Okay, so back to the point. So set up 4 to 6 30-minute writing sessions. Put it into your calendar. Look for the time in your week where you can put it into your calendar. When is a good time? One of the best practices that I've seen for myself and my other students is the earlier in the day that you do your writing, the better. Mostly because we have more of our ability to focus earlier in the day. As the day goes on, we lose our willpower and our ability to focus wanes. So I know from seeing people in my devoted writer class, when they try to write at the end of the day or in the evening or at night, it's a drag. It's just really hard to have that energy to write and the focus. So maybe you're a night person. If that's the case, write at night. Maybe you like writing in the afternoon. I really like doing afternoon writing sessions after I've done my work, and it's kind of a tea break around 2 or 3. I also like writing in the morning, but the earlier you get it into the day, generally the better. And here's why. I mentioned you have more focus. Also, you gain so much juice and joy and energy from doing the writing. You become and are that person who is doing what you say you want to do to yourself. You're honoring your commitment to yourself, and you're doing the writing. Doing our writing brings up all kinds of things, right? It can bring up all kinds of energy or emotions or thoughts or feelings. Generally, there's a whoosh of power or energy or vitality that we release when we're doing something we love and want to do. So imagine that you're starting your day and you have that joy and that rush and that power. That is all yours throughout the entire day. You have access to that and can be fueled by that throughout the entire day. So all the other things you're doing in your day benefit from that early morning writing practice. If you have this experience with your own writing practice, feel free to make a comment below. So how much greater is that versus if you're writing at the end of the day and it's kind of this to do or this task all day, you're like, oh, I've got to do that. I hope I do that. I want to do it. Oh no. And then something happens, the school calls, you have to go get your kid, or who knows what random thing is going to come to you throughout the day. Your writing practice is more at risk at the end of the day or later in the day. And then it's always something that's on your mind that you need to do, kind of bopping you in the head. You need to do that versus early in the morning when you get the fuel from all of that great energy. Okay, so starting early in the morning is key. The other thing, the bigger question, I guess, that we all have is, what am I going to write? So I've wanted to be a writer my whole life. I have lots of ideas. I know I want to do the writing now, but what am I going to write? You might have no idea. Suddenly, when it comes time to sit down and do the actual writing, all of your great ideas have absconded to Tahiti with your inner critic, and you're just left there with a blank page and no tune to dance to. So that is the big thing to start your writing practice with, is maybe a planning session or getting some clarity about what you want to write. One of the things that you can do if you don't have a list or a specific project, but rather a bunch of ideas, is do a free write and invite in your writing self. And the prompt that you would use for the 10 or 15-minute writing session is, I want to write. And just let rip. Just write anything that comes to mind about anything you want to write, both grand and small, personal essays, books. I want to write a specific book about that. I want to write an essay about that. I want to write poetry. I want to write great blogs. From the abstract to the specific, just anything you want to write, put on that list or put in that free write. At the end of the 15 minutes, set it aside, go back later that day or the next day and read what you've written, and maybe highlight or underline the things that are specific projects or ideas that you want to work on. Make a list of all the items that you want to work on. And then you have a greater sense of all the different things you want to write. And then here's an exercise or a process I use with my students. Go through and look at your list. Winnow the list down to like the top 10 or 12 things you want to write. And then make a check mark next to the things you want to work on or write in the next year, the next 12 months. And then make another one next to the items that you want to write in the next 6 months. And then another checklist next to the items you want to write in the next 3 months. And then 1 month. And then by the time you've done that, when you look at the list and you can see where all the check marks are, you will see which items have more kind of a burning need to be written now and that want to be put out there now. So start with those projects. And those are the first projects that you would be working on in your writing practice. I found that when you have specific things that you're working on, even if you don't know where it's going to go or what it's going to be, like, I just want to write a personal essay about my relationship with coffee and what it's done for me and given me. I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't really know what I have to say. I don't know if it's ever going to be public. I don't know. I just want to write that. Do it. You don't have to have any kind of big plan or any big vision. It can be just an inkling of a pull to write about that subject, a conversation you want to have with yourself in the page about that topic. So start with specific projects. Again, it doesn't have to be big. It could be just small. And that gives a little bit more, let's see, like, what's the word? Tension or focus for the writing sessions, because when we sit down to write and we don't really know where we're going to start or even what prompts we're going to use, then it can be lots of room for that inner critic, lots of space for confusion. When you sit down to write, you want to be able to just dive in with as little drag as possible. If you are in the decision mode and decision swirl, What's that like? What's going to happen there? You're going to, oh, I don't know. All the insecurities creep in, all the desire to look at what other people are doing. Oh, I need to do some more reading before I do my own writing. So having that sort of direction and clarity about where you want to dive in will help. So I mentioned prompts, using prompts to write, whether it's a topic idea or whether it's just a random word or a phrase. One of my friends likes to pull a phrase out of a poem for a writing prompt. I like to use random words or phrases. In my devoted writer class, we have daily writing prompts that I give every day, and they're specific and abstract enough to allow the writers to grab onto it and run with it and let it take them wherever they need to go. If you're working on a project, you might use the prompts from your table of contents for your book or the lesson titles for your class that you're writing. You can use prompts for your own projects. A prompt is just a word or a phrase or an image or a sound that gets you into the writing. I think of it as a diving board. You just dive in and swim and let it take you wherever your writing will take you. You want to use free writing for your writing practice. You've probably heard me talk about free writing because it's how I have written everything. It's what I teach in my devoted writer class. Free writing is a way to liberate yourself from the inner critic, get straight to the heart of what you want to say, write in your own unique voice, and feel that kind of flow and freedom and uncensored anti-censorship that you crave and that you've been looking for. So the free writing is simple. You use a prompt, you set a timer for 10 or 15 minutes, and you write without stopping or censoring. At the end of the writing, the timer goes off. You can keep going if you want. You can pause, you can return later, you can make notes about other things you want to write. But I like to add a reflection process. So at the end of each writing session, jot down 3 words or 4 or a phrase that describe how that was for you. Don't overthink it. Just jot down how it was for you, like speedy, zippy, clarifying, or struggle, tense, slow, or it could be any range of experiences. When you have that reflection process at the end of your writing, what it does is it starts to build an awareness about what writing actually is like for you. Not what you think writing is like for you or what the inner critic is like for you or what other people have said writing is like. You have real, tangible reflection data about what your writing practice gives you at the end of each session. If you can keep those reflection words in one document, it's really cool to see it all add up over time, like the experiences that you get from writing. If you're ever thinking, why am I doing this? Do I really want to have this writing practice? What is this giving me back? You can look at that list of words, your reflection process, and see what it's giving you and see why you do it and have real information about what it does for you. So in your learning lab that you're setting up, think about 3 things. What will you write? Get a sense of a project or an idea. It doesn't even have to be a project per se. It could just be an idea. I just want to write about that thing. I just really want to write about that and see what my thoughts are on the page and see how they come together. So what will you write? When will you write? I will write 3 days a week. When I get up after my meditation, I'll do 10 minutes of writing or 15 minutes. And then where will you write? So having a sense of where is a good place for you to write. Sometimes you have to get away from your usual habit zones to create a new habit. So create a place in your home. Maybe it's a corner, maybe it's on the couch, maybe it's in your studio or desk where you do the writing. It doesn't have to be the same every day. It just has to be easy to access and easy for you to slip into the writing zone so you're undisturbed, able to focus and enjoy that writing session. Okay, I'm open to questions. If you have any questions, basically start off with practicing and see what works. A lot of my clients like to keep a progress log about their writing practice. And what this is sort of an ally for you to keep track of your process, keep track of your relationship with your writing. your progress log is a way to have a dialogue with yourself and your writer self about what's working, about your hopes and fears, about what you'd like to do next, resources you need to research. It's a great place to put your 3-word reflection process. Keeping track of this will help your 2 weeks of your learning lab be really effective. I write about designing a writing practice in my new book that's coming out. Here it is. It's all printed up. It's done. I'm going to be reading this aloud to myself over the next week to make sure that it all sounds good, to practice for when I do the audio recording, and to make sure that it's all the way I want it to be. Reading it aloud. There's a whole part, the whole part 3, long section in the book about designing a writing practice. So I've just shared a few of the best practices that we do here at Original Impulse and in my writing classes. Have a short burst of writing time, know what you're going to write, use a timer, and have a reflection process. And then the bonus thought of doing it earlier in the day, if possible. What questions do you have about a writing practice? Add them in the comments now, and I'm happy to answer them. If a writing practice is something that you're interested in sustaining over the year, developing and sustaining over the year, you might consider working with me in a group to set your writing practice up. In February, we'll be doing the Devoted Writer class, where we will work in real time over the course of the month to design our own writing practice. I have structures and support for you, live support, to help you become the writer you want to be, to help get into your writing groove. In a learning lab of a month together with me and other writers, you gain so much information about yourself. You clear through so many of the obstacles that have been kind of in the way of you doing your writing, and you generate a lot of writing material. When you do this month-long class and you commit to your writing this way, you really bring your writer self on board. You set yourself up to have the ability to say, I'm a writer. I'm finally doing the thing I want to do my entire life, which is to write. So I love this Devoted Writer class. I've been teaching this class for 11, 12 years now. It's in different forms and different shapes, but helping people to develop their own sustainable writing practice is one of the favorite things that I do. I've just opened enrollment in the Devoted Writer. We start February 1st. There's a link right there if you want to check it out. I'd be happy to write with you. If you have any questions about it after you read about it and want to know if it's a good fit for you, just email me or direct message me here. I'm happy to answer your questions. Let me put my glasses on and read your comments. Hi, Emma, really helpful video. Thank you. Question, I work from home. It's hard to delineate my day job work time space from my personal work time space. Any advice? I would like clear boundaries between the two. Oh, Emma, I feel your pain, and I know it because I've been working from home, from a home office for 20 years. So I know how difficult it is to actually get your writing done in a workspace. And the way I think about it, Emma, is that you're inhabiting different roles. So when you're in your work role, you're doing your work, and whatever that work is, that's that role. When you're in your writing role, you're doing your writing. When you're in your making soup stock and laundry role, you're in your home mode. It's all kind of bunched together in one place. It's hard to separate it. So there are several ways you can do that. The physical space is the most obvious first line of defense. When I have writing to do on my book or my articles and I know I just need a good solid chunk of time, I go to the cafe. I have been doing this for years. At first, it started off as a 20-something pretentious, I'm going to be like Ernest Hemingway in Europe, writing in cafes and being all cosmopolitan and cool. And then it just became a habit and a place where I developed, that's my writing zone. When I go there, all the habit triggers are set up for me to focus. I get my coffee, I sit down, I write. So if you can get outside the home, and I know at first I was like, this is spending all this money on coffee, is this really ridiculous? And I did the math, and I think I spent $1,000 a year over the year on coffee and cafes, which is a lot. I know, I recognize that. But if I compare that to if I were hiring out co-working space or going to do co-working, it's it's a drop in the bucket. So I pay that fee to get out. And I even found just a cafe 2 blocks away makes it easy. I can just go. The other thing, Emma, if that is not your scene, because a lot of people do not want to be writing in public, it's just not works for them. The library is a little quieter if that is an option for you. But sometimes even just physically moving to another part of the home, and I will do that when I need to, when I just don't want to go anywhere and I just need to get some writing done. What I do is I'll go to the couch or I'll go to another part of the room and write. So even that simple shift can help do it. So space is obvious one. Time is another one. You can set certain times. So like at 2 o'clock, it's your writing time and you step into that mode. You can ritualize it in that way. Those are just a couple of ideas. I know there's a lot more things like using a different computer and closing down tabs. But in my book, the thing that I realized as I was writing the book, The Busy Woman's Guide to Writing a World-Changing Book, is that it's all about focus. Everything that we do now is less about time management or managing our space. It's managing our focus. So what can you do or change or tweak and set up so that you have the kind of focus you want and need to do the writing and to be able to transition into that? What are the things that you need to do to close down all the other tasks for a moment, for 15 minutes, and then transition into that? So look at the transitions, look at how you can garner your focus, and look at seeing if you can even shift locations. Okay. That's a great question. I'm really glad you asked it. I love these questions. Hi, Martina. Would it make sense to participate even if I write not in English? Yes. You would love The Devoted Writer so much. And we always have people from other countries who don't write in English. You can write in whatever language you want. We do not share the writing. We do not critique the writing. It is for you to write in your own space and then connect with the group. You can do that in English. Sharing your process, asking questions, being part of the writing community. So absolutely you can. Jordan, not write in English. Laurel, hi, glad you're inspired. Laurel Cowan Box, gonna proofread my book. Thank you. Hi, Peggy. Thanks for today's ideas and encouragement. Donna, is the new book out already? No, thanks for asking. I can just tell you where I'm at with it. I just finished the second round of edits from my editor. So the book is right now supposedly the way it's going to be when the designers get it. But I'm going to read through it aloud. Hopefully I can do that. I did the practice run last night with the intro and it was great. I had so much fun with it. I thought it was going to be really hard, but I really enjoyed it. So here's the timeline. To the designers by the 18th, they're going to lay it out, mock it up, do what they do. And then once they lay it out, then Laurel, the proofreader, gets it and she does the proofreading, and then I go through and check all that, and then the designers go through and make changes, and then there's one last look, and then it starts to go into print mode. We don't have a specific launch date yet, but I'm looking at mid-April. My hope is to have the book out by April 23rd, which is World Book Day. So we are on it. We will see what happens. I'm still in the planning mode. I guess once it goes to the designer, then it's really done. I'm done. So really this last week is just finalizing any last threads and sending it out there to the designers. Martina, can you share about my editing process? Yeah. Here's one thing about my editing process. I've also, alongside writing the book, I've gotten into what some might call a procrastinatory mode of cleaning out things and cleaning out closets and getting rid of clutter and clearing out my workspace and making it work even better for me. I wouldn't call it procrastination because I'm still doing the work, but what I did do was I threw away 3 drafts of the book. The first 3 drafts, I don't need to keep those. I don't need to hang on to those. There's no gold in them. They're hills. Just recycled that. But what I do when I am editing is I will have whatever the most final draft that I have written is, and then I'll print it up. and then I will read over it and I'll make changes on it like this. So you can see like adding a whole new paragraph, lots of changes there. Let me just see. There's not as much, and this is the last draft. This was the penultimate draft, but you can see there's just like changing things around, lots of notes and lots of changes. I do that on paper because I'm able to see it better. I'm able to see everything and read it better and easier than reading on the screen, which is a little bit more fatiguing. So then I make all those changes, and then I take that and then I type all the changes in and make sure it looks great. Maybe I'll print it up again. At this point, I was sending it to the editor, so she was working on it digitally. She gave me thousands of comments digitally, and I went through digitally and accepted those comments and changes and did that digitally. So that's pretty much the process. And that happens, well, I threw away 3 drafts, 4, 5. I think I'm at like 5 or 6 drafts of this book, which is not bad. So that's that. Hi, Molly. My daily free writes are often more like journal entries, great for clearing the morning cobwebs. Yeah, that's that practice of building that relationship with yourself through the writing. Great stuff. Thank you, Layla. Hey, Kristen from Germany. It's so cool to see you. All right, I need to see this flag. Christina is greetings from, is that Mexico? So we should all know all the world's flags, right? I think that's Mexico. Forgive me if it's not. Okay, and then hi from Germany. Okay, any other questions? Hey, John, where do you get ideas? Yeah, that's the question you ask. Hello, Wendy. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. I like to keep these, you're welcome, Martina. I like to keep these at around 30 minutes, just some inspiration for you for your writing life. If writing is something that you want to do this year, I say do it. I say do it now, and I say do it with me. Join the Devoted Writer. You'll love it. It's a great way to get your writing groove on and to also establish a writing practice that you can use throughout the rest of the year. We meet in February, May, and October. So if you want to plan for that, you can do that. You know where to find me. Cynthia at originalimpulse.com is my email. And you can also check my website out at originalimpulse.com if you want more information about stuff. Thanks, Layla. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I hope you have a fabulous day and do all the writing you want when you want. Bye-bye.